educational series. Let me press OK. I'm your host, Honey Sagari, and today we have a very special guest joining us. I am thrilled to introduce Sally Sykes, a functional medicine certified health coach whose expertise has transformed lives through a passion for holistic health. Graduating cum laude from Georgetown University and earning her JD MPA at the University of Texas at Austin, Sally began her professional journey as an attorney before venturing into the world of functional medicine. With over 15 years of experience, she empowers her clients to delve into the root causes of their symptoms and specializes in brain health, insulin resistance, and sustainable weight loss. Beyond her professional success, she's an avid roller skater and devoted mother to two teenagers. Wow, Sally, you look 20, okay? I don't know how you have two teenagers. And today, Sally will shed light on breaking through weight loss plateaus, the significance of personalized health coaching, and the comprehensive benefits of GLP-1 treatments. Join us as we uncover the secrets of sustaining health transformations and enriching our lives with Sally's wealth of knowledge. Sally, thank you so much and welcome. Thank you for being here.
That was such a beautiful, kind introduction. I was so happy to be here. I've been so excited about this since we met. It was just such a good fit for my coaching practice and what I've been doing. So for people who just are now meeting me, so I'm a functional medicine health coach, and I coach people on all kinds of issues, but functional lab analysis and really getting to the root cause of symptoms and, weight loss resistance and cognitive decline and those kind of things is my specialty. And I happen to have gotten into a specialty niche where I tend to be coaching a whole lot of people on weight loss, and a whole lot of them in the last couple of years have been on one of these GLP medications like semaglutide or tirzepatide. So I have a lot of information to share about how these medications are being used, how the providers who are using them the most successfully, like what are they doing? Because it's not exactly necessarily the standardized dosing or schedule. And so if you're here and you're new to Qyral and you're talking to other people about this medication and trying to educate them about that, sort of like what are these medications? Why are they in the news? Why are they exploding? So I thought I would start there because everyone might not be familiar with them. Maybe you've been with Qyral a while and you've been maybe on the derm side a little more. So these medications are actually not new. GLP-1 medications are diabetes medications that the very first one was approved by the FDA in 2005, but it was called exenatide, I believe. Sometimes these medications, I'm not exactly sure on how to pronounce them. But it was a twice daily injection. So you can imagine that wasn't as popular, right? And then we got to liraglutide, and that was a once daily. And then we moved into semaglutide, which was really revolutionary, that this could last longer. It could be a once weekly injection, same with tirzepatide. And that's when we really started to see the revolution in these GLP-1 medications. And so these were originally approved as diabetes medications, but what researchers found was that they are also leading to significant weight loss. So 33% of people losing over 20% of their body weight, which is comparable to bariatric surgery. And obviously there are major advantages to avoiding general anesthesia and the other complications that come with bariatric surgery, right? Like you are not able to absorb nutrients as well. Of course, there are also risks for going under. And bariatric surgery can fail, right? So this has been a huge game changer for people who have done everything that they can do to lose weight and have not been able to do it otherwise. And
just to add to that,
yes.
You heard about Lilly's announcement yesterday with tirzepatide or Mounjaro, their approval for weight loss. So this is super exciting.
It's huge. It's so exciting. And that's exactly what should be happening. And I love hearing that. So the way these medications work is, how are people losing weight on them? Well, they are mimicking a natural hormone in the body. They are slowing gastric emptying. So you are staying fuller longer. Food is staying in the stomach about 6 hours instead of 2. And there also seems to be an effect in the gut-brain connection, those satiety signals. So you're just feeling fuller longer. Along the same lines with the gut-brain connection, they are studying this for binge eating disorder and alcohol use disorder, because there appear to be some really interesting effects on the addiction centers in the brain. So stay tuned for more on that. So that is how the medications work. They tend to last, the craving controls tend to last about a week in the studies. That's why they decided on weekly dosing. However, when you look at the studies and dive deep into them, the medication's actually lasting in the system about 5 weeks total. Okay. So what that means for dosing is that you are, maybe if you're having the same dose every week, you're still maybe getting a slightly higher dose because you're building on last week's dose. So when I am talking and coaching patients on how to dose this along with their doctors, sometimes they can stay on a much lower dose for longer because they still have it in their system from previous weeks. And we like to have them just stay on whatever low dose they're on, as long as they are losing slowly and steadily. And what I usually recommend and see as most successful is about 1/2 pound to 2 pounds a week, and not more than that. Now, look, if you're dealing with a class 3 obesity, a BMI over 40, you probably will lose more than that in the beginning, and that's natural and that's fine. But typically we want slow and steady weight loss so that it is sustainable. This also helps reduce potential side effects. So some of the side effects you may have heard about in the news are like gallbladder issues, pancreatitis, those kind of things. Those issues can happen whenever you lose weight with or without semaglutide. And it's really due to rapid weight loss, right? And so when we use the minimal effective dose of these medications, and honey, this is why I love that you all use the compounded medications, and the programs that I have always worked with also use compounded medications, because with the pre-dosed brand name pens that patients are often sent home with the adios, diagnose and adios, and no coaching on anything on diet and lifestyle or adjusting the dose, personalizing it to the patient, there is no changing the dose. There, you may end up with more medication than you actually need as a patient. Mm-hmm. So with the personalized, with getting your own vial at home, you're able to draw up exactly how much you need. And look, I see this as just the win-win-win of these medications. Using the minimal effective dose, we're getting the 1/2 pound to 2 pound a week weight loss, as long as that's your goal. We're avoiding potential side effects, which we can talk about. The most common side effects that people see are going to be nausea and constipation. Typically sort of like a mild morning sickness is what most people say. And we can talk about ways to deal with that too. I have lots of hacks to avoid those side effects. But
now let me ask you real quick, do you find, so you have a lot of patients who are using both tirzepatide or semaglutide. Do you find your patients have less side effects with tirzepatide versus semaglutide? Because that's what we're finding. But do you have similar feedback?
So I have maybe one patient actually on tirzepatide. And the reason is that the cost differential is still so large. Actually, I'm thrilled to see the cost of tirzepatide with Qyral, because some clinics are charging as much as $500 a shot for tirzepatide. Yeah. And so for most patients, it's really out of the budget. And then of course, if you're being prescribed a Mounjaro pen, we're looking at $1,600 to $2,000 a month uninsured, if you can find it even in stock, right? So the vast majority of the population I'm working with are on semaglutide, not tirzepatide. And I looked up the studies, and it is true. Tirzepatide has slightly better weight loss results and slightly fewer side effects, but currently the pricing is this much more expensive. So patients are not flocking to it as much, but we do have it as an option. And I love having it as an option for those people who are just really weight loss resistant, and have, maxed out on the semaglutide dose. They have, we've gotten them in their thyroid optimized at someplace great, like Modern Thyroid Clinic in Austin, or, their hormones optimized as well, and their nutrition is optimized, and boy, they still are not losing. Then, and if it's in their budget, looking to tirzepatide, it is a wonderful, yes. I met with a coaching client last night who is taking it, and she absolutely loves it. So I'm thrilled. And I think Qyral is one of the best price points I've actually seen on it.
No, thank you. Well, let me just take a quick step back real quick before we have some comments coming in. But so the way, let me just mention how I met Sally. That could be a song. That could be actually a song. So as you all know, we sell through consultants. That's how Qyral sells and markets all of its products. And we use a company called Momentum Factor to make sure that we remain compliant. They scrape the web. So I met with Jonathan, who is Sally's partner. He took us out to dinner. We were at a conference and we're talking about longevity and all these sorts of things. And he's like, oh my God, you and my girlfriend Sally would totally hit it off. You guys I have to hook you guys up, put you on. So we get on a call and I come to find out Sally is actually a lawyer, or was a lawyer, who got into functional medicine. I just want for our viewers and our listeners, just give us a background, because the reason I'm bringing this up is your approach to the blood work. I want you to talk about that before we delve even further into. So just tell us a little background of how you even got here. So you're a lawyer, and then how did you get here? Just tell us.
So I was an attorney, got married, had kids, and then my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Okay. And that was really scary for him, obviously, but for the rest of the family, because, you know, mostly in the news, you're thinking Alzheimer's, this is a genetic disease. If my dad has it, then I guess I'm just destined to get it. The rest of us are. So I started diving in and found Dr. Dale Bredesen's book, The End of Alzheimer's, which is just my Bible that I have obviously right here next to me at all times. And he's got a list of labs. He has an entire program laid out for how you prevent cognitive decline. And it turns out like 75% of Alzheimer's patients do not have any genetic component. It's mostly lifestyle mediated, and mostly these are preventable things, whether it's reversing insulin resistance, right? They're calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. So making sure that we're keeping our blood sugar in check, and semaglutide and tirzepatide are key for that. But it's also, you know, maintaining proper hormone levels in perimenopause, menopause, and andropause. It's going to be optimizing thyroid function. It's going to be avoiding toxins, lowering inflammation, and optimizing nutrition. So he lays this all out in his book. And I was fascinated by this table he has in here that shows all these lab values. And for him, he's got, and they're labs I'd always heard of, you know, whether it's lipids or glucose or different hormone levels, but he had optimal lab ranges that he wants these for maintaining brain health and preventing cognitive decline. And I thought, well, look, my clinical pathology labs, that they have normal ranges. These are very different, you know. So I started thinking, well, where are all the optimal ranges listed? There's got to be a list somewhere of all the optimal ranges for labs. No, there is not. So I created one, and I've been working on it and making it for the last 15, 17 years now, probably. Huge Excel spreadsheet with every lab you can think. I've got the normal ranges, but the problem with normal ranges is they vary by lab, and they are simply the averages of all the mostly sick people getting those labs at that lab. So as the American population gets sicker and sicker, 93% of us are insulin resistant, overweight, or obese. We're metabolically unhealthy. So as our population gets sicker and sicker, those normal ranges get sicker and sicker, and they're simply no longer relevant to disease prevention and optimizing health. So when patients come to me in my coaching practice, the primary thing they're coming to me for is for lab analysis. And I analyze it from an optimal standpoint using my spreadsheet. And all the research.
Love that. I love that. I thank you for sharing that, because I don't think people realize, like, the optimal range is not what your doctor tells you. You should actually, and that's where you come in, Sally, right? So I would highly suggest, if anyone's interested in that, get in touch with Sally, because she'll guide you on how to get your blood work, and she'll help analyze it and so forth. So now, tying this back to semaglutide, let's tie it back and tell us what you're seeing and how and why you're putting, or talk to us about the thyroid disorders, and then how and why you're putting patients on semaglutide based off of their lab results.
So, you know, the most typical thing is someone comes to me, they have a whole range of sort of vague symptoms, but are not vague to me, but they have maybe been 10 years in conventional medicine told this is, you know, this is all in your head. It's typically, you know, fatigue, weight loss resistance, hair loss, loss of libido, especially belly fat, right? Like that visceral fat they're getting. Cognitive changes, mood changes, brain fog. They just don't feel like themselves. And, you know, I'm sorry to say, unfortunately, most of the people coming to me are women, and they are medically gaslit and told, look, this is all of your labs are normal. This is all in your head. Here is an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety medication, and a sleeping pill. And there is really just kind of go on out, go on and stop bothering me. And you're a Karen and you're this, and it's just not okay. And look, when I analyze their labs, first of all, the first step is doing the medical intake. Then the second step is saying, okay, these are the labs we've already had from your doctor. Here's all the labs they haven't done: a full thyroid panel, they've never checked your insulin. They've, never checked your HS-CRP, which is a really critical inflammatory marker that I encourage everyone who is using this medication to check before and after. HS-CRP and insulin, both those are, wow, those really plummet on semaglutide and tirzepatide. That's risk of heart disease and diabetes right there. So, patients don't have a Xanax deficiency, right? But I at 50 years old might have a progesterone deficiency. Okay. The two top symptoms of low progesterone are going to be anxiety and insomnia. Okay. So it's so much better for my brain to be taking oral micronized natural progesterone at night instead of a bunch of medications that negatively impact cognition, especially with the family history. So that's what I kind of do. And then I come up with, when they get all the labs back, when I have a full picture of what they're doing, then I say, okay, look, it turns out your weight loss resistance is, yes, you're insulin resistant, your fasting insulin is above a 6, where blood sugar is here, you're pre-diabetic, but also your weight loss resistance may have some other components, right? There may be some suboptimal thyroid function. There may also be some hormonal imbalance, PCOS, perimenopause, menopause, all of those kind of things. Also, we might see nutrient deficiencies, inflammatory markers, and signs of underlying infection, and we can address all of those. And so I lay out a plan, whether it's supplements, diet and lifestyle, and then prescription medications to ask your doctor about. And one of those prescription medications is semaglutide and tirzepatide.
So what are you seeing after you analyze the pre and post result of blood work when a patient gets on semaglutide specifically?
So the semaglutide specific labs that I would recommend everybody check is going to be a lipid panel, a complete blood count, CBC, that's going to include your glucose, HbA1c, which is your fasting, it's your blood sugar, it's an average of your blood sugar over the last 3 months. You're going to want high sensitivity C-reactive protein, and make sure they do the HS-CRP, the high sensitivity one. There's also one that says CRP. It's literally not as sensitive. I've seen one patient have both, and they came out normal on CRP and very high on the HS. So get the HS-CRP. And then, so lipids, HS-CRP, HbA1c, and your complete blood count with glucose. So when we start to see those, I do lab reviews for entire groups of patients on these medications. So you'll typically see them high. We'll see high inflammatory markers. That C-reactive protein is so well correlated with heart disease risk. We'll see patients in the highest risk of heart disease within 2 or 3 months on these medications. That risk will go into half. And a few more months, 2 or 3 more months, they are now in the lowest risk of heart disease. And so where I'm really fascinated with these is what is going to happen to patients on all these other medications, right? Like statins, blood pressure medications, insulin, ADHD medications. We haven't even gotten there. I have patients who've gone off of Adderall because of this. Antidepressants. I think I'm super fascinated, but statins especially, since they double the risk of diabetes and lower hormones. So I love that there's possibly an alternative that doesn't kill our hormones.
Oh my gosh. And this is all as a result of semaglutide.
Correct.
Yes.
And it's more and more coming out every day. Just go, if anyone's interested, go to PubMed, just put PubMed in your Google, go to that website, and then use that to search for studies and say semaglutide and psoriasis. Oh, it's cured. And I've seen it in clinic. Someone's had psoriasis their entire life in their scalp, and after 3 weeks on semaglutide, it was gone. And then that's now showing up in the studies. So it's very anti-inflammatory. We're seeing relief for in autoimmune disease. So Hashimoto's disease, antibodies going down. It's pretty incredible.
I love that you're sharing this wealth of knowledge. I mean, these drugs they're not new. They've been around for a long time. Why are we just hearing about it? Why is that? Is it just because of mainstream media, or what's going on?
I think there's a lot of that. I think when they first came out in 2005, like I said, they were twice weekly injections, and they were just for diabetics. And then I think now, fast forward 20 years, semaglutide came out 3 years ago. I think, can't remember exactly. Look, that a once weekly versus a daily injection is a massive game changer for people who are needle phobic. And look, we're still getting there. A lot of people are much more comfortable with these injections than they used to be. But I was talking to a coaching client yesterday about them, and they honestly didn't know the difference between a subcutaneous injection, like the semaglutide injection, which is very small, and like an intramuscular injection, which is like a flu shot, right? Like those are big and painful. Those are much bigger needles. They're longer, they're thicker. Men who are doing testosterone injections might be using those in their thigh. That's very different. So these injections, for anyone who is talking to patients about these, really are very doable. And the best explanation I have found when I'm talking to coaching clients about what this is like is they may have seen advertisements on Instagram for like Levels Health or NutriSense for continuous glucose monitors. And in those ads, they'll have patients like really afraid to put the glucose monitor on, right? Because there's like a needle application that then is leaving this filament in, right? And they're making this face and they're saying, oh no, it's going to hurt, I'm going to do it. And then they do it and then they go, that was nothing. Right. And that's literally exactly, I would say most patients who, because I have several who are use semaglutide and they have continuous glucose monitors, that the semaglutide injections are actually less painful than a continuous glucose monitor, which I think is so great if anybody is potentially needle phobic. I've actually had no one not do the program or drop out because of the needles issue. As long as I was able to get them sort of one-on-one and coaching, and they had enough input from their provider on how to do it, and they were able to at least get one shot by themselves, that mostly they were just like, oh, I've got this.
Yeah, no, we get a lot of people that are like, oh, can you launch the oral semaglutide? I'm like, but it's so inconvenient. You have to take it daily. And not just that, it's a lot more expensive. I'm like, if you could just get past that first shot,
yes,
you're golden. It's that first shot. And then
100%, it works better. I don't love, right, like anything that's going to go through the liver. I always worry that there's going to be more side effects, right? And of course the cost, and apparently it doesn't work as well. But yeah. Do you want to talk about how to avoid side effects?
Well, we'll get there. I just want to touch on, well, first of all, if anyone wants these panels and they don't, if they're already on our program and they want these panels that Sally just mentioned, we can provide the metabolic, like the script for it. So you guys can request it from your doctor. We already have it. No additional cost. And then you can go get your blood work and then come to Sally and she'll analyze it for you. And she'll leave her information. I just want to make sure that you leave that at the very end. We'll share that with all of you guys. But I want to talk about, so we have a lot of patients that are now going on to their like 7-8 month cycle, and they've reached their health goals, or they're plateauing, they're slowly reaching. So we'll break this up into two parts. So let's talk about plateaus. What's happening? Because there could be underlying issues, right? So what's a plateau?
So plateau, first of all, they can just happen in the weight loss process. We know this. However, there can be many causes to plateaus. And so, sometimes it's just a matter of finding that patient's optimal dose of semaglutide, of tirzepatide. But often once I dig in, especially to the labs, I'm able to find out what is going on. So we optimally want fasting insulin to be between a 3 and a 5. And for almost everyone I see, where fasting insulin is like in the 30s, the 20s, the teens. So insulin is the fat storage hormone that tells the body to store fat rather than burn it. So you can literally eat air and you will gain weight or not lose weight when your fasting insulin levels are that high. So on semaglutide, in the background, they'll be coming down as your metabolism is healing in the background, but sometimes it'll be slow going in the beginning while that fasting insulin is still high. We even had one patient who did not lose a pound on semaglutide for the first 4 months because her fasting insulin was so incredibly high. And because we were tracking labs, we were able to show her, look, no, you're not losing yet, but look where your HSCRP is. Your risk of heart disease is cut in half. Your fasting insulin was a 32, now it's a 16. Your LDL is down, your triglycerides are down, all these, your blood sugar, your A1C, all of these are coming down. And sure enough, once her insulin got below a 6, she finally started losing. But that was incredible data. And I think I look back to my coaching clients before semaglutide, who I was just coaching on lowering carbs, who would give up on low carb too soon. And I think it was because they gave up because before their metabolisms were fully healed. And I think, it takes a long time for us on the standard American high carb diet to damage our metabolisms to the extent that we have. And look, the government told us to eat this way. It is not our fault. This is not to shame anybody. I have type 2 diabetes and had to reverse it myself 10 years ago. So literally no shame in this. We're all working on this together. But this takes time to repair, and it is so worth it. And slow and steady really wins here.
And you heard that. And so we also get a lot of people, I'm not feeling the effects. I'm not. And we start, we start patients incrementally, 0.25 milligrams, 0.5, and we slowly move them up. Can you explain why we have to do that, Sally?
Yes. Look, and there are patients I know, and they're so impatient and they want to lose weight. But if we don't move you up very slowly, your body doesn't have time to get used to the medication. And then the risks of side effects go up. And we don't want you throwing up or needing to call in Zofran for you. And Zofran can be wonderful and life-changing, but it stops weight loss and it makes you feel exhausted. So if you're trying to get through your day on a Zofran and work, that's not going to be great. So really, what we're trying to do is allow your body to get used to the medication. Really, when we have side effects, it's usually in the first month or two. And as your body gets used to the medication on the lower doses and you're able to tolerate it, then we can titrate it up. But yes, I had somebody come in and their doctor started them on like 1 milligram and they were so sick. And I really don't know why you would do that. It seems really risky to me. And the risk of side effects do go up when you have a really high dose and you have really fast weight loss. It's not necessary.
So you heard that slow and steady, guys. This is
slow and steady.
You did not gain all this weight overnight and you're not going to lose it overnight. So just be patient while your body adjusts and adapts. Like Sally just said, it takes a lot of time to reverse all the damage that we've done. So
it does. And we want this to be sustainable, right? Like nobody wants this to be just another diet that is a failed diet because, they ended up having gallstones because they lost, 20 pounds in 2 weeks and, didn't hydrate and didn't have, the proper nutrition. Right. So it's a safety issue, but it's also for your long-term success. Honestly, this is the most successful patients. But other reasons for plateaus are going to be not being thyroid function not being optimized. So I send a ton of people to Modern Thyroid Clinic in Austin, and then hormones not being optimized. And you guys, when I talk about hormones, I'm not just talking about women my age for perimenopause and menopause and andropause. For men, I'm also talking about younger women who are, maybe have PCOS. If they're on hormonal birth control, I see very, very slow weight loss. Hormonal birth control, whether it's the pill, Mirena, IUD, weight loss is comparable to menopausal women who are not replacing hormones. It's very, very slow. And once they get off of the hormonal birth control, go on a non-hormonal IUD, something like that, then the weight loss seems to come off, and their depression and anxiety tend to go away too. So that's there are medications. So you might want to review with your provider. There are several medications that actually lead to weight loss resistance. So we talked about birth control pills, and antidepressants, but also steroids. If you've ever had to do a steroid pack for allergies or an injury, you know that you probably gained 10 pounds in a week and you were starving and didn't know why. It makes your blood sugar skyrocket. And fortunately, that is temporary. That will go away. But sometimes when I'm trying to figure out why someone has plateaued, I'm like, list your medications for me again. And they'll be like, well, I started this steroid. I'm like, boom, there you go. But it is, there's other, we talked about stress, cortisol, sleep, travel, changes in circadian rhythm, illness, surgery, anything that's going to raise cortisol, that's going to raise blood sugar, and that's going to stop or slow weight loss. So sometimes I'll dig in and it'll turn out, oh, you know what? I just went to Paris on this fabulous vacation and it was wonderful. But look, every time I got on an airplane, I gained 10 pounds. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I just retain water. It's something, but a lot of people are like that. This one is not going to be popular, but a really common cause of plateaus is alcohol. So even just one drink stops fat burning for 12 to 36 hours. Oh. And alcohol, along with smoking and being overweight and obese, are the top 3 underlying causes of cancer, you guys. They are. So a lot of people are rethinking their relationship with alcohol. The good news about semaglutide and weight loss. Do you know about this, honey, about semaglutide and alcohol?
No, I mean, I know it takes away a lot of the cravings, right?
Yes, it's incredible. Like people are just blown away that they were taking this medication to lose weight. And it turns out, instead of a bottle of wine every night, they're having half a glass and they didn't even try.
Yeah.
So it's massively changing people's like relationship with alcohol. It doesn't help.
Is it because of the side effects or is it how it behaves on the brain? Yeah.
No.
Reward.
Yes. I mean, of course, yes. The number one cause of nausea on semaglutide is going to be sugary alcohol, like wine or margaritas, but not everybody has that. For most people, I would say like 90% of the people, it's simply that they don't crave it anymore. They just forget about it, which is, I mean, look, nobody wants to be a binge drinker, right? Like we just want to live our lives and do what we want to do. Counting net carbs instead of total carbs. That's another way to get people off plateaus. So net carbs is a great marketing ploy and green way that processed food companies greenwash their products to make us think they're healthy when they are actually not. So I'll look at some of these 2 net carbs, and then you look on the back and it's actually 40 total carbs. So that's gonna get in the way of your weight loss. Hidden sources of sugar. There are a million different words that mean sugar. So you can just Google hidden sources of sugar and start looking for them. They often change them up and separate them in ingredients lists so they don't have to list sugar as the number 1 ingredient. So start to educate yourself about the hidden sources of sugar. And then there are certain sugar substitutes like maltodextrin and sucralose, which raise which raise insulin, the fat storage hormone, more than table sugar. So I had somebody who wasn't losing weight and discovered they were drinking Celsius drinks with sucralose. He stopped. He lost 7 pounds in a week. So
isn't that something? And these are the sugar alternatives too. They're terrible for you guys.
Not all of them. So there's 4 that are good. So allulose, erythritol, monk fruit, and stevia are good. But yeah,
I heard stevia has like negative the heart effects of it, right? Didn't they just come out with the studies that who knows? I mean,
we'll have to look.
Yeah. So at least 3 of these could be good. Monk fruit is a good substitute, but
Yeah.
I love that you're touching on the plateau. So anything else as far as plateaus that we can do to get over the plateau? Can it be protein related? I find myself whenever I hit a plateau with weight loss, it's just I'm either not consuming enough calories or I'm not getting the right nutrients, or it's the protein. For me, it's a protein game. Just up my protein and bam, it just all comes out.
I am so glad you brought that up. So I was listening to a podcast, I don't know if it's a Huberman Lab or where it was, but he was talking about we are going to be hungry until our bodies receive our protein needs for the day, which makes a whole lot of sense. So if we're eating the standard American diet, which is high carb, high sort of empty calories, and we're just starving all the time because our bodies are not receiving the amount of protein that we need. So in my coaching practice, we're actually working on, because so many are on semaglutide, trying to get good protein sources. And the one, I actually still have them from my Zooms this morning next to me on the TV. This is the one, I don't make any money from it. This is the one that I use. And I found it's called Paleo Pro, and it's a beef protein isolate. And I think it's got monk fruit in it. But it also is made with egg whites. The reason I originally found this one, I tried the whey protein and it made me bloat and just real gassy, and we're not looking for that. So, but the beef protein isolate has been amazing. I also use like this one, Perfect Keto collagen powder. There are, a whole lot of ways that we're trying to meet our protein goals. I recommend 100 grams of protein every day at least. So, and ideally more if you weigh more. So it should be like 1 gram per pound that you weigh. And it's hard to get sometimes, but it really can help. It can help reduce cravings, but we really are pushing protein on any weight loss with semaglutide or not, so that we retain muscle mass. Because, the things you read in the news about, semaglutide causes muscle wasting. Semaglutide does not cause muscle wasting. Rapid weight loss without meeting protein goals and without weight-bearing exercise causes muscle wasting, right? So actually, there's Dr. Tina has a podcast, and she quoted a study recently saying that patients on semaglutide versus patients losing weight without it, actually the patients on semaglutide had better weight, like muscle mass than than the non-semaglutide patients. And they were both, accounting for, they were having enough protein, and they were both doing weight-bearing exercises, that the semaglutide patients actually did better. So I think that's really good news. So if you pay attention, hit your protein goals, you're doing your weight-bearing exercises, doing your squats, we don't want to lose, we don't want that pancake butt. So
I read a study that said on average you lose about 20% muscle mass whenever you have rapid weight loss. It's just part of the process. Your body starts burning the protein. So let's shift gears and talk about personalized coaching. It could be a total game changer for a lot of people. How does your coaching approach help tailor strategies to individual needs, especially for those on GLP-1 medications?
So everyone is a little bit different. When I'm working with people, sometimes they don't even want to start semaglutide first, right? So if I've identified 3 different ways, potential root causes for them, for their weight loss resistance, some of them are reluctant to start semaglutide. And even if they are very much candidates, they might be, have a BMI over 30, they might be a diabetic, and they still are not interested in it. And that's when we start diving deep into issues like, and taking the shame out of binge eating disorder, for example, which is the most common eating disorder in this country, but nobody talks about it because we're too embarrassed. Like, if anybody on this call has never hidden candy in their bathroom, okay, maybe I'm the only one, but like, I'm sorry, this stuff is really addictive. It truly is. And we shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about it, because when you give rats a choice between, cocaine, meth, heroin, and sugar, they choose sugar every time. So we are not bad people. We don't have a moral failing. We're living in the United States, where companies are allowed to put essentially heroin in our food supply to profit. And so we've got to then deal with it. And we're being told, oh, just everything in moderation. Really? Like heroin in moderation? I don't know, man. So so it's right. It's not hard. So having those hard conversations and taking the shame out of that is often the first step, because if there's binge eating going on, a lot of times there is an emotional component, and having the, mental health resources to refer out to when and if needed, right, it's so important. Because as a health coach, right, I'm not a psychiatrist, not a psychologist, but I do have those resources for my patients. And sometimes, they are concerned about, if I take this medication, I am going to lose my coping mechanism. This is my one source of joy, my one source of dopamine. How am I going to cope with that? I had seen this with alcoholics as well, worried that they won't want to drink, and then what will they do? Because that's how they are coping. So we have to personalize it to the patient. We also have patients who come in very anxious about the medication. They're very worried about side effects, right? And in those cases, we say, look, let's start you at half of your starting dose. We don't need to start at 0.25 milligrams. Let's start you at 0.125. I've done that with several patients, either because they were anxious or because they told me they had a sensitive stomach or have a history of being more sensitive to medications than other people. And you listen to patients, you do a full medical intake, right? And you really listen. And usually they do really well. If you start them at the super low half dose, maybe they don't lose weight in that first week. They're not anxious about their treatment program. We don't want anxiety about treatment programs, right? We want them to feel good and confident in what they're doing. And, like I said, slower is always better. So many ways to tailor it. I try to get I always recommend lowering carb intake, but if they are new to that, everyone is starting in a different place. I usually recommend starting with eliminating gluten, because it is so inflammatory and can help boost thyroid function, which helps boost weight loss. And you're getting rid of something that is a non-nutrient dense source of carbs that we just don't need, and making room for much more nutrient density and higher good fats and high protein. So that's just a simple thing. I always say, if you leave here and you do nothing, and you throw away my 15-page report, and you do nothing else for the rest of your life but go gluten-free, that's going to significantly impact your health in positive ways. And so
I love that. So with this personalized coaching, let's talk a little about side effects and minimizing the side effects. So what are your recommendations on that?
So, we have so many. So side effects are dose dependent. So the first thing we say, if you're having side effects, is do not inject again until you're feeling better. So this is not an antibiotic where you have to take it on time or take double the dose if you miss your dose, right? So, and you'd be surprised how many patients are like, I was still feeling sick and I injected. No, 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 no. This is fine. You go 10 days, 2 weeks before injecting again. That's fine. Now, if you go longer than 4 weeks, you're going to want to start back at your original starting dose because that dose is out of you and we don't want you feeling sick. You will basically be resensitized to it. So dose dependent. Wait longer, wait until you feel better to inject again. The next time you inject, perhaps lower your dose, right? Cut it by half, or you can try splitting your dose, right? If you are on, 0.5 milligrams, you could say, you know what, I'm going to do 0.25 milligrams one day. And maybe in a few days, if I do well, I'm going to inject another 0.1 or 0.2, right? So, and just see how you feel. You can also try injecting. Most people are injecting in the abdomen, and that works really well. But if you do have some side effects, some have found that if you inject in the outer thigh, that lowers side effects. So that's another option. Let's see, avoiding sugary alcohol and gluten. Those are huge. I've had patients say they had a whole gluten-free pizza and they felt fine, but they had one bite of bread from a bread basket and they were in the bathroom feeling sick. And if you're having nausea, a lot of people are reaching for like saltine crackers and finding that makes it actually worse because gluten. And so try some salted nuts instead, some siete chips that are, not have no gluten in them, or some rice crackers even. But, the salted nuts is a good lower carb, high good fat, more sort of nutrient dense choice. Let's see, electrolytes. So side effects, there are some, because these medications lower your hunger, they also we're finding they're lowering your drive for thirst. In fact, let's all drink a bit of water right now.
Yes.
Oh, much better. So lowering people's interest in drinking water. So you really have to keep your water on you at all times. And when you're dehydrated, which you can often have is some fatigue, some headaches. So if you can find some good sugar-free electrolytes, my favorite, again, I don't make money on these, is Dr. Berg's electrolyte powder. It has no maltodextrin. It's sweetened with stevia. So if you're sensitive to stevia, or if we find out stevia is the devil, then we'll maybe look to something else. But what I do like about it is how much potassium it has per scoop. It's 1,000 milligrams and we need 4,700 milligrams a day. And most only have 100, I think. So that can really make you feel better, making sure you're getting your electrolytes. Redmond's Real Salt is amazing. Portions. So it's really tricky on semaglutide. When I'm coaching patients for weight loss and insulin resistance, when they're not on GLP-1 medications, we're typically talking about lowering carbs and doing some intermittent fasting, right? Like 16-8, they're eating all their meals between 12 and 8. Maybe they're even doing one meal a day, something like that. On semaglutide, that is not practical because you're just feeling fuller longer. We have to be eating more meals, more frequently, just smaller meals, because we can't stomach it all. And so in order to hit our protein goals, we're going to be looking at smaller meals more frequently. However, I still do recommend at least 12 hours of fasting a day to give yourself that rest and digest time, between dinner and breakfast the next day, so that that's your time for your body to go in and clear out old, dead, and diseased cells, amyloid plaques in the brain, right? Most Americans are eating every hour they are actually awake, and only not eating when they're asleep. So if you can give yourself at least 12 hours and then having smaller, high protein, high good fat meals throughout the day, that seems to help. Let's see, constipation. That's another fun one we see because it slows gastric emptying, right? So we do see some constipation. Magnesium citrate is amazing for that one. You can get any brand. The Designs for Health brand is a good one that I've heard people say works well. And just start with one and take another one. You can, every night, take another one with a full glass of water until you have relief. Don't take too much too soon. I don't want anybody to have a blowout, but I love magnesium citrate because it's well absorbed and it helps with constipation. You'll see another form of magnesium that's like a cheaper form in most grocery store supplements called magnesium oxide. It is not well absorbed. It will give you diarrhea, but most of us are magnesium deficient anyway. So let's do one that actually is well absorbed and is going to help with the constipation.
Magnesium
So citrate. Yes. There you go. Let's see, waiting longer than 7 days between your injections. That is absolutely fine. Some people find, look, I'm still, my cravings are still well controlled and it's 7 days. Okay, wait till day 10, right? We have people in maintenance injecting every 2 weeks, every 4 months, 4 weeks, sorry. Something like a multivitamin with a methylated B complex has been really helpful for people. Take that with food. You can find one, just Google it, honey, if you have a suggestion. But the methylated B complex is usually well absorbed, better absorbed, and that just is going to help cover your bases. A multivitamin, you're eating less. We just want to really focus on nutrient density, and then taking it with food because B vitamins can cause nausea. And yeah, because you can have your doctor call in anti-nausea medications like Zofran, but really, if we can just not hit you so hard with such a high dose, we won't need that.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. This has been amazing. But how about as far as food goes, nutrition? It's very important, and also lifestyle changes, because everyone expects this to be it's a tool, right? You still have to make lifestyle changes in order for this entire process to be sustainable. We don't want patients reliant on this for the rest of their lives. So let's talk about that, making this drug sustainable so that you can eventually come off of it. So let's spend the next 15 minutes discussing what is the coming off process, what lifestyle changes should we make while we're on these drugs. Tell us.
These drugs, I feel like they should be used as a tool to be able to make the lifestyle changes that we all know we need to make, but the addiction centers of our brain are simply hijacked, right? And so they are, while you're on the medication, while the cravings are lowered, we are recommending 100 grams of carbs per day total, not net, 100 grams of protein at least per day. We're looking at filling the rest of your plate with high good fat and high protein and nutrient density. I always recommend gluten-free, and getting a lot of water, at least half a gallon of water a day, plus electrolytes, the 12 hours of fasting, and then 2 to 3 times a week, getting some weight training in, and then as much sort of walking, just basic movement as you can get. I mean, honey, did you know that even just a 15-minute walk after dinner can stabilize blood sugar massively? I love that. Like, you can go walk to the mailbox and stabilize your blood sugar. Like, I can walk through HEB for an hour and that's good for me. I love this.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. So using the time on semaglutide to clean out your pantry, I literally have coaching clients hire me to come over with a black trash bag and clean out their pantries for them. When we look at the nutrient labels on them, look at all the hidden sugar, the gluten, the inflammatory ingredients, and we get rid of them. And while they're not hijacked, like, oh, I might eat that one day, or I might need that, we just clear it out and get new healthy food all set up. And then once they've reached their goal, because we're losing weight slowly and steadily, and we've had time to change diet and lifestyle and start new habits, and we're tracking labs to see how their metabolism has healed, then we know when they're ready to come off. So it's both, we're looking at, have you reached your goal weight, but we're also looking at, have you changed your diet and lifestyle to one that is sustainable, right? That you can, if you're still eating, Pop-Tarts and drinking a bottle of wine every night, you're going to go right back to where you were. And so, I'm very upfront with patients about that. So this is a tool to getting where you want to go. But a lot of patients, there are a lot of patients who go off the medication and do just fine because their metabolisms are healed. We've, tracked their insulin, it's gone down. They're able to maintain on the low carb, high good fat, high protein diet. But just as many feel so good on these medications, and their doctors are seeing that their markers are so improved and their inflammation is down so much and their risk of heart disease is so reduced that they do decide to stay on a low maintenance dose, and for it really indefinitely. And I have not seen any provider have a problem with that. And we're talking a low dose every 2 to 4 weeks. It's just, it can be a little bit different between Halloween and New Year's is when I see people, if they may be on a monthly maintenance dose, come Halloween, that last week of October, they're like, I'm back to weekly for a little while, or back to every 2 weeks for a little while. And their providers work with them, and they are very happy to do that for them. And then once they get past the holidays, they're back to monthly maintenance dosing, because they don't want to go back to the way they felt before, to not being able to move, to having joint pain, to, feeling the brain fog that comes with high blood sugar, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say the brain fog is the worst.
Oof,
This
it is.
Yeah.
Well, I ate too much Halloween candy I ate any Halloween candy, which I shouldn't be doing as a type 2 diabetic, but I ate a lot. And I was so foggy the next day. Felt like garbage.
So how about the titrating up and down? Okay. So now I'm getting to my goal weight, or I got to my goal weight. Like a lot of people just quit cold turkey, and it's like, no, you're not supposed to do that. You wouldn't get off of any drug just like that. So can you talk to us about the titrating up and titrating down, and until you get to, a maintenance dose, quote unquote?
Yeah. So if I have someone who's thinking about, hey, am I ready to go off the medication? I've reached my goal weight. We're going to look at their labs and see, okay, what's your metabolism like? And then we're say, okay, if the metabolism is also looking pretty healed, what do you think about starting to half your dose, or go, instead of weekly dosing, try to go every 2 weeks at half the dose and see how that goes. And a lot of it really is shared decision making with your provider. And it can look a whole lot of different ways, but I do recommend doing it slowly. And that will allow, when you do that, most patients are able to find their optimal maintenance dose. For some, it's very low, 0.25. For some, it's 0.125. For some, it's 0.5. And the frequency can vary as well. But that's where you want to personalize it and work with your provider. And yeah, you don't want to go off. I would not recommend going off of it cold turkey. And I don't recommend going off of it if the metabolism isn't healed underneath, because it's setting someone up for failure. That means they're still working on the diet and lifestyle part in the back, and we need to keep working on it. And that's okay. We meet everyone where they are.
Yeah, exactly. Because we have asked this all the time. So, can you guys come out with a maintenance dose? And it's like, well, a maintenance dose is so different for different individuals. This is why this entire treatment plan has to be personalized for you. And you have people like Sally that analyze your blood work and your markers and kind of work with you on that coaching, one-on-one coaching. Because for some it's 2.4, for some it's 0.25, for some it's 0.127 or whatever it may be. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, as we approach the holidays, Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and we have Christmas right after. That's where everybody gains their weight. Do you have any recommendations for us?
So someone just sent me, I think it was Keto Mojo, or was this? Yeah, Keto Mojo. They make a blood sugar monitor it's a finger prick monitor that checks for blood sugar and ketones. They apparently have a link to low carb Thanksgiving recipes. And that was one of the first blood sugar monitors I ever bought. And I really like their brand, and they just seem like a good company. So I'm going to check that out, because that's really, when you think about it, Thanksgiving should be the easiest one to do low carb. It's essentially based in meat and vegetables, right?
Yeah.
Like if we can just avoid some of the, the breading, we could do sort of a lower carb or gluten-free stuffing. So yeah,
Between the candied yams and the stuffing.
I know the candied yams, they're so good, you guys. I know.
So bad.
I know, it's ridiculous. But yeah, no, a lot of people are definitely staying on their medication during these times, or stepping it up. But I always say, hey, be careful, because when you're eating more gluten and more alcohol on these medications, you could experience more side effects. So we do have some people that are like, you know what, I know I'm going to eat all those things, so I'm actually going to skip my shot. Mm-hmm. So that's true. So, everyone to each their own. But I think one of the hardest things is when you are trying to improve your diet and lifestyle, and everyone else is doing something different than you are, and you feel different, and people are maybe making fun of you, or what we find in psychology is a phenomenon called the change back. And I talk about this with coaching clients. You're trying to make healthy changes to your diet and lifestyle, and what happens often is that your loved ones who love you dearly inadvertently start doing things to sabotage you, right? Baking you muffins, bringing you margaritas and everything, because they want you to stay sick and overweight. And they're not thinking, this is totally subconscious. They want you to change back to the way you were so you don't potentially leave them, right? And it's this whole weird psychology. But if you talk about it up front and you say, hey, look, I love you so much. I'm working on my health for you so that I can be there for you, for the kids, for all of our family. These are things we can talk about up front and support each other. And a lot of times the loved one is like, oh gosh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. I'm so sorry. Yes, we definitely don't have to ask. We can say, go take the bread away at the restaurant. And sometimes all it takes is just an honest conversation. But sometimes it is hard to be a little bit different. But I find that often if you get a negative comment about, oh, you're just eating that, or you're eating, the healthy one is eating this, that you can just say, oh, I just feel really good when I eat this, and then you just switch it around. Like, tell me about your kids. Didn't you just get a raise? Like, people would much rather talk about themselves. And honestly, as a friend, don't you want to hear about them? Like, who cares about what you're doing, right? Like, catch up with your friend and listen to them, and learn about what's going on with them, but be true to yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So we've had a lot of questions come in, and I haven't even asked you because I love the topic that we're discussing, but we have 5 minutes. I want you to spend a couple minutes at the end to talk about how people can find you. But before that, can you just touch on this particular one? 2 questions. How do we know when metabolism is healed? And another one, what blood work should we be checking and how often? So if you could touch on the first one, how do we know our metabolism is healed?
Your metabolism is healed. And actually, I'm going to switch it because this is the blood work you want to check for. You want a lipid panel. You want a complete blood count, or CBC. That includes your glucose. You want your HbA1c, and you want your HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein. Those are basic labs. Your doctor may have you do more. Those are basic semaglutide labs that I do for someone who's on semaglutide. The way you will, those are ones we're tracking to see if your LDL starts to come down below 100. Triglycerides we want below 100. Cholesterol, we want between 150 and 200, not below 150. That's a risk for cognitive decline and low hormones. We want your HSCRP below 0.9, optimal for brain health, okay? We want your fasting insulin between a 3 and a 5. That's where we want that one. Glucose, we want that between a 70 and 85, right? And HbA1c at least below a 5.2. Mark Hyman likes it below a 5. Sometimes I've heard him say. So those are kind of all the labs that we're looking for to say, yeah, like the likelihood of success and you coming off these medications is going to be a little higher now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Really interesting. So we don't assign a lab sheet. We don't prescribe a lab sheet if people come into our program with existing labs, because a lot of people have had recent labs done. However, if you haven't, we do provide the lab sheet that you could take to Quest Diagnose. So if you guys are interested, we do offer this, and you could just request it from your doctor, or you can message us and we'll take care of it, just as an FYI. But how often should we be doing this?
So typically, every 3 months is really a good. I mean, that's HbA1c. That's your average blood sugar over 3 months. That's not going to change for 3 months. Usually, it depends on the pharmacy and the vial medications. A lot of these vials are lasting 3 months. So when you're reordering a new vial, is a good time to check them again. It just depends on your provider, but it could be every 2 months, every 3 months, just depending. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. And how about the question, how do we know when our metabolism has healed?
That's when you get to those optimal ranges that I was talking about, right? So yeah, so that's where optimal, very different from normal ranges, is when you get to those optimal ranges for the labs that I just, particularly for that fasting insulin below a 6.
Right. Got it. Missed that one. So I think we've got, all right. So share with us, we have 3 minutes. Share with us a little more about your service and how people can find you and where they can go and how the process would work.
So the easiest way to find me is on Instagram at Sally Dahl Sykes. It's SallyDahlSykes.
Mm-hmm.
I have a podcast called I Love Labs on Apple Podcasts, and I'm on YouTube at Sally Sykes. So that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can, on my Instagram, there's a link tree that has, a link to my website, which unfortunately is not easy to put here. So I haven't gotten that figured out yet, but you can book with me directly on the website. Anytime. You just can book an initial consult, and that's the easiest way to do it. It shows my schedule. But the way the process works, you book an initial consult. I work almost exclusively by telemedicine. But if you are in Austin and you want to meet in person, we can do that as well. And then we discuss what your health goals are, what your medical history is. Most people are coming to me for the in-depth functional lab analysis. So I'm figuring out, okay, what labs do we have? What labs do we need to ask your doctor for? And then we go from there.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sally. This is very informative. I appreciate it. I learned a ton from this chat. So thank
glad.
you so much. I hope you can come back and share a little more knowledge. We really appreciate you. And thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section, or if you have any comments for us, and I will be sharing all of Sally's information with all of you, and all the lab work, and we'll share that with everyone. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Night.